thing you say is to always have an exit strategy. Someone told me once when I was in my radio days that the day to start looking for the job was the day you got your newest job. And so I always kind of had that in the back of my mind. But what do you mean by always have an exit strategy?
An exit strategy doesn't necessarily mean that you're looking to leave the organization. It really means that whenever you take on a role, there's a reason you're taking that role. There's skills you want to get. There's something you want to learn out of that. And you have to understand ahead of time, how long you think it'll take to get that. And if all things, work well, what your next move will be either inside the organization or outside the organization. Because trust me, the organization has an exit strategy for you as well.
Your audience is really targeting minorities and telling them that good is not good enough, that they have to be excellent. But I want to ask you, what is your advice for people who are non-minorities working with minorities? How to help them be their personal best under the strategies that you've laid out?
Yeah, that's great. And a lot of it comes down to three areas: performance, exposure, and perception. The performance piece that they all have down pretty well. They know it. You have to be a top performer. The piece that can be missing, particularly for women and people of color, are the exposure and the perception, exposing them to the right people, to the right information, to the right leaders, because at the end of the day, no one rises to the top unless someone brings them through. And so you need to have that exposure. But then perception, you have to be aware of the brand. What are you putting out? What's your perception when you walk into a room? And so helping them understand their image and how they come across are things that are very, very important.
And what do you think are the greatest struggles today for minorities in the workplace?
I think the greatest struggle is the fact that the people who are making decisions tend to hire and look for people who look like themselves. And so if the only place I go looking for board members are my existing board or the country club I belong to, then I'm going to be limited to the folks that I have access to. And so I think it's getting that exposure. It's being put out there as a thought leader. It's being put in a position where people can see you and the value that you bring.
And what are some of the ways that people can take, just a regular work environment and find something in themselves and really showcase that without bragging? Isn't that kind of a fine line?
Bragging is beating yourself on the chest and say, looking at me. What I advocate is, putting yourself out there as a thought leader. So blogging and talking about things that are relevant to your industry or your space. I'm talking about attending events that are industry-related events or business events that allow you to really shine and showcase your knowledge and your value. So it's less about look at me. It's more about look at what I know and what I can do.
And how important are relationships in the workplace for people who really want to advance? I mean, can you be that person that just goes to work, works super hard, does your best every single day, and then goes home at the end of the day and just keeps everybody at a little bit of an arm's length? Because perfectionists, they do tend to do that.
Perfectionists tend to do that, and they tend to get looked over as well. It's about relationship. It all starts and begins with people and relationships and interpersonal skills. And so it's really important that you build those networks, that you learn to socialize and get along with people that you like and some that you don't like. If you talk to the folks at the Center for Creative Leadership, they'll tell you one of the biggest derailers of anyone's career is the inability to maintain and develop interpersonal relationships.
And so at the end of the day, what do you think is most missing? What is the component that you think is most deficient for people trying to advance in the workplace today? What are they forgetting?
I think they're forgetting really the fact that it's all about working with people and through people. It's about empowering others. It's about being able to relate. Again, no one goes to the top by themselves. Someone has to see you, recognize you, and help you along the way. And if you don't maintain those relationships, you can be the hardest working person that nobody really knows.
The hardest working person that nobody really knows. And you see that all the time in the corporate environment. Keith, tell us where we can find your book and your work.
The best place is Amazon.com or BarnesandNoble.com. I also encourage you to visit my website, KeithWyche.com. That's WYCHE. And I'd love to have you follow me on Twitter at KeithWyche.com, at Keith Wyche.